What's going on, YouTube? This is your boy Azriel, the one coming at you. I appreciate you guys for jumping on board. I know it's few and far between when I do my videos these days. Fatherhood really takes up a lot of your time, especially when you have two boisterous and rambunctious little boys to look after. So, I gotta be real. I'm sitting here munching my Tostitos and Queso Blanco dip while watching the highlight reels from the start of the NBA season. And I get a message about a petition going around on change.org. Normally, I don't pay those petitions too much of mind, unless it generally concerns a veteran or some egregious thing that it would look bad on me as a human being to not at least look at it. But some told me to look at this petition that I got sent. And what I found was something that was just absolutely stupefying. I'm at a loss for words. Normally, I don't give one whit about CNN, hereafter known as the Communist News Network. But at the same time, I'm not about to let you Negroes get away with you trying to get away with and getting this man fired. Now, for those of you who don't know what this thesis is going to be, I'm going to say and put up front in your face right now, you don't want Don Lemon fired because he's telling a lie. You want him fired because he's telling the truth. And of course, we know Don Lemon, from what I've heard, I have never substantiated this through my own personal research, but I'm pretty sure it's safe to say people know Don Lemon to be gay. We're going to put that aside for a minute. We're going to deal with this solely on what he's actually said. And because there is actual truth in what he said, you Negroes are wanting him to get fired, not because he told a lie, but because he's shining a light on you motherfuckers that are hiding in the dark. The things you're trying to sweep under the rug, you don't want people to know, he's showing you. He's embarrassing you. And he's embarrassed you enough to the point where now you butthurt and you want to do something about it so daggum bad that you're willing to try and take a man's career. So what's going to happen is I'm going to show you some video clips. I'm not going to put the actual supporting research embedded into the video, but I'm going to put the links into the box so you can, for your own viewing pleasure, examine these statistics that are going to back up what Don Lemon has said. And then on the back end of those clips, and sometimes in between, I'm going to come in with my own commentary. But you can rest assured, at the end of this video, before the end of it, after the last clip I roll of Don Lemon, I'm going to pull out the scalpel and I'm going to sadistically cut away your weak position, your weak supports rather, to your argument. And then I'm going to excoriate the living hell out of you. I'm going to take this logic bomb, I'm going to drop it on you, and if you thought the Tsar-Bomba explosion by the Soviets was something to see, you ain't seen nothing yet. So, without further ado, make it happen.
Are police under attack? Are protesters' voices being heard? Joining me now is Rob Weinhold, crisis and public safety expert and a former Baltimore police officer. Rashad Turner is a lead organizer for Black Lives Matter in St. Paul, Minnesota. And CNN law enforcement analyst Cedric Alexander. Good evening, gentlemen. I appreciate you joining me this evening. So, good evening. Let's chat. Good evening, let's talk here. Cedric, you first. How do police do their jobs in this climate?
You know, it's a tough climate right now, Don, for police officers. And it's almost at a point now where many officers across this country are finding it very difficult to do their jobs. Not difficult because they don't want to do them, they want to do them. But every time that officers go out here, make an attempt to do their job, want to do it well, there's this appearance, there's clearly this feeling, and I think we all experience it as well too, and we all see it whether we want to acknowledge it or not. They're under scrutiny, I mean just scrutinized to a point where it does make them hesitant. It does make them wonder if they're going to be able to get through a shift, and that hesitation I'm really concerned about. You know, we've saw some very vicious attacks on police officers here over the last few days, and those attacks really are concerning for all of us because these are men and women who go out there and do this job every day, but the maliciousness and the kind of rhetoric as well too that has been going on, and I'm not blaming any source or anyone on that, but we got to find a way to talk to each other and use our language to be positive, to build these relationships.
Let's put that question to Rashid in part, because you're from Minneapolis, where your group marched this past weekend, and there's some pretty harsh rhetoric that they've been playing, calling police pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Good. Let's play it.
Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. 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 Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon.
So, Rashad, you were out there. This was your group. Do you think that any of this anger and frustration, do you think that is spreading? Is it going too far?
Don, I think that for many, many years, black people have been under attack. I find it very offensive that people are going to say this chant has led to the deaths of officers. There's been plenty of rhetoric.
But are you condoning that? You don't condone that language, do you?
I mean, here's the thing. It might not have been the best chant, but I'm not going to tell someone what they can say or what they can't say. What I don't condone and what I feel is very offensive is that we're being connected to people we don't know, people who aren't a part of the movement. And what's even more offensive is that there's all this uproar about a chant. If you can remember back to the New York City Police Department, who wore shirts saying, "I can breathe," mocking the death in the last few words of Eric Garner. There was no uproar, Don. So I think that it's, a false narrative that's continuing to be pushed. Obviously, we're going to continue to use our voices. We're not going to be, distracted by people who want to focus on a chant out of a 4-hour march that was peaceful, that brought a bunch of people together.
Will you instruct
police officers that were there with us?
Will you instruct people not to use language like that, or in the future?
I mean, here's the thing, right? We are trying to free ourselves from oppression, so we are not going to appeal to the morals or to the values of people who are oppressing us. I'm not going to oppress someone's First Amendment rights or freedom of speech, but we aren't promoting violence. I think that's ridiculous, and it's just ridiculous that people want to connect us to that.
Robbie has a point. There's no direct, concrete evidence that it is contributing to this environment, but how do you respond to that?
Well, I think at the end of the day, everyone's accountable for their own actions, and we hear a lot of things in this world, a lot of messages. People say things that are far left, far right, up, down, whatever it may be, but folks are accountable for their own actions. And I think that whether you talk about Black Lives Matter or Police Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, at the end of the day, I think everyone really wants accountability. Accountability for criminals, accountability for police, accountability to one another, that the right things will be done for the right reasons, and a sense of lawfulness
the thing that we're not seeing, Don, we're not seeing cops being held accountable. People want to talk about holding us accountable for rhetoric. We aren't seeing police officers hold their fellow officers accountable for their actions.
The police officers in Baltimore are now under indictment and are going to face trial. The police officer in North Charleston also is going to face charges. Darren Wilson went through the process and was exonerated from it. Do you believe that police aren't being held accountable in all cases, or
not at all? Every excuse is being made for officers. They cover up, lies.
Citation needed.
You even think about Walter Scott getting shot in the back. Which one of those officers stepped up to the plate to be what people call a good cop and report that fellow officer for lying in a report? Cedric, if it wasn't for that video, there would have been no accountability there.
Cedric, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, let me jump in this, and I appreciate it, Don. Let me say this, first of all. This is the crossroad. This is where we are at this point in policing in this country. There's a lot of miscommunication. a lot of information that's passing each other as well too. This is not about blame on Black Lives Matter, and it's not all blame on police, because you have a number of police officers out there across this country who are doing it right. And in terms of progress being made over the course of the last year, I disagree with the young man there. A lot of progress has been made. There are departments across this country that are changing their training modules. We're changing the way we do business because we're listening to what the community is saying. We're following the recommendations that are being made in the 21st Century Task Force report, and we're trying to figure out how to do this better. But in order to do this better, we have to be able to talk and communicate with each other, not take any values away from anyone. But, you know, I just posted a CNN op-ed that an attack on police is an attack on the community at large. And I would ask people to take a look at it, because I think it will somewhat suggest that we're all in this together, and we've got to find a way to work this, because the thing about negative rhetoric, regardless of whether it's coming from a politician, it's coming from another social group, whoever it's coming from, because we hear it coming from all over the place. But the important piece is that we got to be careful with our rhetoric, because at the end of the day, people are listening, people are taking it, and we don't know how people are going to respond. I have a responsibility as a law enforcement leader to be able to measure every word that come out of my mouth, and it has to be something that is going to work towards good. And even with Rashad and I need to be able to sit down and figure out, how do we come up with solutions? We all know what the problem is, but we got to be solution focused.
Okay, well then that's the question then, Rashad. Then what is the end game? What is the end game here? Because when the Democratic Party asked the Black Lives Matter to join them, saying, well, you know, we're not directly endorsing you, you're not endorsing us, but we stand for your message. Black Lives Matter said no. At this point, let's see, there was someone who wrote an op-ed saying, Barnett Holmes in the Daily Beast wrote an op-ed. I don't have it in front of me. You can put, oh, here it is. I have it right here. It says, Black voices and black votes have arguably never had greater agency and influence in American society. So aspiring to disengage from the political process is emphatically a step in the wrong direction. How do you respond to that? What is the end game of Black Lives Matter if you don't want to involve in the political process when so many things have come together to help your particular cause?
I see, the end game is for us to stop being killed, for us to stop being beat by
But how
the
does that
police.
happen then?
There's all this talk.
How does, the question, and I want to be very respectful of you, but how does that happen without legislation, without being involved in the political or the legislative process? It doesn't just happen from yelling.
Here's the thing, Don. This racism that we see, this white supremacy that we see.
Called it.
It didn't just start yesterday. So these politicians, these police chiefs and things of that, people of that nature are acting like this problem just started yesterday. They are in total control to change policies, to do things to really help the community. What we see is continued everyday efforts to try to bring down the movement. We're going to continue to use our voices.
Rashad, I understand that, but respectfully,
history,
what do you want? How do you plan to achieve that?
What we want is people to listen. We're going to continue to use our voices. You cannot tell me, Don, that there's no power in protesting.
There is a power in protesting, but that you have to go beyond protesting. Listen, I think what Black Lives Matter is doing, I think it's very important, but you have to have an end game. What is the end game? You say the end game is to stop racism. Okay, then how are you going to do it?
Don, there's been a 33-point plan. If you go to campaignzero.org, there's a 33-point plan on there that lists out policies that need to be changed. We want complete criminal justice reform. We also want people to stop acting like they don't know what the problem is, right? Or they don't know what the solution is. The solution is doing things to help people, not pushing the blame off, not talking about we won't sit down at the table. Do you think Dr. King sat down at the table? Of course he did, and nothing has changed since then.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll leave it there. I think a lot has changed since Dr. King, but I want to have you back, Rashad, Cedric as well, and Rob. It's a great conversation. Unfortunately, we only have limited time on this show, on this hour. We'll have you back.
I look forward to coming back, Don.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I appreciate it. And we come right back. The man who is not known for holding back on any subject, Montel Williams, is here. He's going to talk about Black Lives Matter, that movement, Donald Trump, and much, much more. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm more than ready. What's up, buddy?
It's good to see
How
you.
you doing? Good.
First, before I get into my commentary, I need to give a shout out to tldr for this particular phrase.
Citation needed.
You guys should definitely check out this guy's channel. He's a really good YouTuber. I just found that it was rather apropos to use that remark, and occasionally throughout the remainder of this video I may still use it. So I'll give you the link to the video I took it from. If you like his content overall, I definitely recommend that you subscribe and like and share his videos. Pardon me while I have myself a cigarette. Now, at this point, let's sum up what you just saw here. Now, the generalchange.org petition, which is in the box for you to go and examine it for yourself, is saying that Don Lemon has forgotten the essence of journalism, and so he has antagonized, misrepresented, and down-talked the black community. I want you so far, just on the basis of this clip, and there'll be at least 2 or 3 more in this video, to ask yourself this question. Who actually misrepresented the black community as a whole? As if someone automatically, because of their social or public celebrity status, is automatically elected to represent the black community. And further, I have to ask this question. So if this is the case, then why haven't you submitted your views? And more importantly, I have to ask this overarching question. That is, since when did a person of celebrity or a well-known journalist or a well-known public figure, to be more general, all of a sudden has to represent you and has to espout the views regardless of his or her own personal values? Someone please answer this for me, because I'm missing this disconnect. What I saw, maybe you guys can agree, and if you agree, please tell me in the comment section below. What I saw was Don Lemon, and I know where Don Lemon stands already on most of these issues. I can generally tell you where he stands. But where Don Lemon actually said in this interview was, he pointed out that this guy's position was weak. He said that the Black Lives Matter protesters said that the police weren't held accountable, yet he gave 2 and 3 examples of the police being held accountable for their actions. Let's not forget Officer Daniel Pentalio of Staten Island, the one who actually choked out Eric Garner, was held accountable. Justin Volpe, the one who sodomized Abdul Owima, was held accountable. Even to some extent, the cop who shot Oscar Grant was held accountable. This narrative of the police always doing things to black folks and not being held accountable, is an absolute lie. And as a journalist, as you saw in the previous clip I just rolled out for you, Don Lemon tried to stay within his own views, but did come to the center and try to get the other side out into the open. And of course, you, the American public, should decide for yourselves. I mean, that's the way it should be. That's not always the case, especially when you consider liberal media outlets who love to spin the story. Now, I'm going to ask some more questions. Did you think that Don Lemon actually here in this point was being biased? Because what the framing petition is putting forward is essentially that Don Lemon is not saying what we all are supposed to say by automation. You know, the way most of you Negroes think. Groupthink, hive minds. Where else have we seen that? Feminism. Again, I'm setting up the basis for a later video I may do. So be advised why I'm setting the groundwork here now for. Inasmuch, he's pointed out that the Black Lives Matter protester was a bit misleading. But then he also gave the man credit. He said, well, he's telling the truth. There is no correlative evidence. So please, someone say to me, show me in this clip, where did Don Lemon actually go wrong? Someone tell me this, because I'm not seeing it. But while I'm waiting for you to tell me this, let me tell you what I saw. Don Lemon, in his own beliefs and his own views, for the most part, tried to check that. He tried to be neutral, and he tried to be unbiased as possible. The problem is when you approach the Negro with evidence to your claims and not just throw wild blanket assertions all over the place, what you're going to find is that the Negro is going to run from the evidence. He cannot connect the dots, to quote David Carroll. He cannot make himself stand on a solid argument. He flies in the face of absolute truth. He would prefer to believe the sweetest lie because it is convenient, because his liberal slave master, again to quote David Carroll, is pushing, or rather pulling the strings. In and of itself, this was pretty much a debate between three black men. The white man, the only white guy on the panel, barely spoke and seems to have agreed with the deputy for the public safety division. Forgive me for botching the title, but he seemed to agree with them. And Don Lemon and these two gentlemen, the one white guy and the one black guy, all came to a general consensus that there is a problem and that we need to come into the center and have a discussion, an honest, meaningful discussion. But of course, the operative word here is honest. And when it comes to the Afro-American Negro in 2015 going down to 2016, honest is not going to be his watchword. Integrity flies from him. Why? Because he refuses it. He denounces it. If it was left up to him, it would be bronies, My Little Ponies, and pink rainbows and Skittles all over the place. That's what it would be. It would be Candyland to this Negro. He would sit there and he will believe whatever is convenient for him to believe. He would rather the sweetest lie than the bitter truth, simply because he cannot stomach the ugly reality of the world for himself that he has created. And because he cannot stomach it, he cannot stomach anyone pointing this out to him in order to try to help him. What you can only do to this dude is show him the evidence, turn around and walk away. Because to sit there and to try to argue this with him, you're going to have more fun watching paint dry. Let's be realistic. You would probably have more fun squatting bare ass on a hedgehog before you can get any value of having a discussion with this type of Negro. Now, as for the next clip, I'm going to roll for you the actual footage of Don Lemon getting into a debate with a former federal prosecutor and CNN legal analyst, a black female. We already know how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to roll this clip because this was the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. So, without further ado,
that very disturbing video that surfaced showing the violent classroom arrest of a student by a school resource officer. Our CNN anchor Don Lemon is joining us, along with former federal prosecutor and CNN legal analyst Sunny Hostin and former assistant FBI director, CNN law enforcement analyst Tom Fuentes. And I want to caution everybody, Tom, we don't know what happened before this video emerged. WIS, our affiliate, the state newspaper in South Carolina, they're both reporting that this disturbing video shows what we see here, an intense confrontation between a female high school student and one of the school's resource officers. And as I just said with the commissioner, Ray Kelly, the former commissioner, it's very disturbing. But is there ever, though, an excuse for someone like this, the resource officer, slamming this young girl's head to the floor?
Well, I don't know, Wolf, if there's an excuse for slamming, but what happens is that, this officer, and I don't know if this resource officer is a fully trained police officer or basically a glorified security guard, but the person is supposed to be removed from the classroom and doesn't want to be removed and doesn't comply. We're assuming that's what leads up to the violence. And at some point, if the police officer has to put his hands on that person, it's not going to go well. And that's just, you know, the lack of compliance accelerates that whole bad situation. You know, again, having him throwing her around and trying to put her on the ground or put her on the floor of the room, it does look disturbing. And, you know, we do want to know more about that.
And once again, we don't know what happened before this video, but let me get Don and Sonny to weigh in. Don, first to you.
Well, I sort of agree with what Tom said. I don't know. I mean, it does look disturbing. The part that is most disturbing to me is seeing her throwing him around. As far as, and I've looked at it over and over again, as far as the desk going over, I don't know if the desk fell over because she didn't want to get up or if he pushed over. I don't know. So I think there's context to everything. I would like to see what happened before, and I'd like to see what happened afterwards. But I do agree with everyone, including the commissioner and including Tom. It does look horrible. It does look like there's no excuse for what he's doing to her. But again, we don't know. As the commissioner said, this only shows a small slice in time of what happened. I'd like to know more before passing judgment.
Are you guys kidding me?
No, we're not kidding. We don't know what happened. You weren't sitting in the room, Sonny. You don't know if she wasn't standing up.
I don't need to know more. Let me tell you this.
You do need to know more. As a prosecutor, you should want to know more. Yes, you should.
The law provides, Don, that the standard here is whether or not the officer has to use this type of force, whether it's reasonable and necessary.
But how do you know without all the information as a trained professional? How do you know without all the information, Sonny?
Don, this is a young girl. This is a girl in
I agree with you on that. That's right, but you don't know what precipitated it.
I don't need to know. We see what happens.
Yes, you do need to know.
Whether or not that force is justifiable is the issue, and the force is not justifiable.
Sonny, hold on for a second.
She is sitting there. She is not resisting. She is sitting there in a chair. That is
I'm not even going to cut in the middle of this clip because it's kind of short, and I think it speaks for itself. So I'm going to be a little enterprising here, and I'm going to go as far as to say maybe I can reach. It will require a huge amount of mental gymnastics, but just so I appear fair and balanced, I'm going to do so. Now, arguably, this is where Don looks a little sketchy, because it's kind of seeming like he's not calling it as you see it. But then, unfortunately, for those people who want to have this narrative of Don Lemon, it exactly says what it is. He says it looks horrible. I agree. I personally, and I'll probably do a video on this sometime before the weekend is out, I can say with some certainty that this just looks bad. Just hands down. Don Lemon didn't deny this. But then he said something that made sense. We only see this much. We only see what happened in that instant. We don't know what led up to it. And what makes me upset about this Sonny Hostin, whatever this broad's name is, that kind of upsets me, as a former prosecutor, your job is to seek the truth. Let me say it again. Your job is to seek the truth. Which makes me wonder, you were looking to find something to make this guy guilty, when a prosecutor's job in seeking the truth is to make sure that justice is done, whether it's in favor of the state or the defendant. Now, I am no law student. I don't claim to be a law student. I don't profess any extensive knowledge of the law beyond that of your average informed citizen. But that is troubling to me. And the fact that she accentuates, this is a young black girl, really. Sonny Hostin, I'm really starting to wonder, when it's young black boys and there are issues going on in the black community and these young black boys are killing each other, I wonder why you're not so outspoken on that. Maybe you are. And if she's ever said so, ladies and gentlemen, please prove me wrong by putting it in the comment section below. I would love to examine that. But given the way this bimbo is on camera, on national television, getting all hostile and blatantly saying out in the open, I don't care to look for the truth. I only care to get this guy and nail his balls to the wall. Now, she was correct. The law looks at the standard of what is reasonable and what is not. She was not wrong there. I can't say that she was. I would be an idiot if I got up here right now and said that. However, it's a deflection because it shies away or pushes the argument somewhere else rather than where Don and the other CNN anchor were trying to go, which is to say we don't know all of the information. And therefore, because we don't know all the information, it would behoove you to look for all of the facts before forming an opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, where else have we seen Negroes, these so quote-unquote Negroes that wanted to get Don Lemon fired, where else have we seen them do this? We can start at Trayvon Martin. We can go on to Mike Brown, Eric Gardner, and so many brothers and sisters who were shot or murdered at the hands of someone non-black. We could say that's where it started. And here's the way that this split and double-mindedness in the reasoning shows up. Because this same reasoning of we don't care about what it is, this was a young black girl or a young black boy killed by somebody that looks like him or her, we want justice. This doesn't happen. So without even saying anything, here goes, for some people, might be mental gymnastics, but without even saying anything, Don Lemon gets her to expose the flaw of Negro thinking. How? Because it's do this, but let's not maintain continuity and or consistency in our reasoning and apply it on the other side. See, there's the narrative again. Whenever it's someone non-black, there's outrage. Like my boy Tommy Sotomayor pointed out in his video. When a black female teacher whooped a black female student, it got local news coverage. Nobody talked about it. Nobody said anything. It was no outrage. Y'all was fucking silent like rats pissing on cotton. To again quote David Carroll. Y'all had nothing to say on that. But for some reason, here, because this guy is white and the girl is black, you have something to say. Where else do we see this? In Texas, at the pool party. Now, I'm probably, for your reference, I'm going to link you to the press conference. It's on my boy Tommy Sotomayor's channel. If you're not following that man, if you're not subscribed to him, get your ass over there and make that happen. But I brought that point up for his video covering the press conference, and I'm going to bring the Texas pool incident up to say this. This is the narrative. No one wants to talk about the issues that affect blacks. In fact, it's ignored. It's not even given a pass. It's just simply sat in front of you and it's like you don't see it. Yet when you call this out, these leftist morons will say, here you go. White, it's white, so it's got to be right. You hate your own people. You're a coon. You're a Sambo. You a buck dancing, soft shoeing, toe tapping Negro. You sold out. All these buzzwords and shaming language and all of this here. Don Lemon, without really saying it and without this woman realizing it, has just confirmed that narrative. That this is what you Negroes do. This is what you do. And unfortunately, when Don points this out, we know this because what happens, I'm going to give you a couple of anecdotes here. If you throw a brick into a pack of dogs, the one that hollered is the one that got hit. The only person that gets upset is a guilty conscience. Or to quote the late Johnny Cochran, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. If the shoe fits, wear it. You see where I'm going with this? It pretty much means if you're the person that fits the particular talking point, you're the only person that's going to get upset. If there is a such thing as a modern day black intelligentsia, I've never seen them get upset. You don't really see your celebritard heroes get upset about opinions expressed in the media. And you certainly will only see your race-baiting Jesse Jackson's Negro Leaks and NAACP, which I'm surprised they weren't in on this already. I'm surprised. When this situation, exactly as it's going on, is playing out. Now, where am I going with all of this? Conceptually, once again, in this very same video clip, and this is the clip that was the show that broke y'all's back now. When you look at the video clip on its merits, when you look at it on its merit, what you're going to see is that Don Lemon talked on both sides. He stayed in the middle. He said, yes, this was horrible, but I don't know all the facts. How can I, if I wanted to make a judgment call on this, how can I make a call, but I don't have all the information to make that call? That's just common sense. And it goes to show that in the black community, the reason why there's ever any legislation or anything going their way is because you Negroes are intellectually lazy, you are ignorant, and you willfully want to remain so. I mean, for Christ's sakes, Sonny Hostin, I'm assuming a well-educated woman of stature, she makes more money than I make in a year that I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years. I ain't gonna lie. But she right now in that moment is a microcosm of what is wrong with the black intellectual consciousness. The inability to set aside personal feelings to deal with the facts. And this is why your Black Lives Matter movement got started. Because you Negroes could not accept the facts. Remember I said earlier in this video that the Negro flies in the face of the truth. The truth runs from him. Why? Because he prefers the sweetest lie to the bitterest truth, because he cannot accept the gravity of his reality. That's a fact. And until this Negro can do so, he is going to perpetually, by his own hands, cause and engineer his own destruction. I know, fucking sucks. Get over it. This is something you Negroes have got to understand. If you expect any real significant changes to occur in your lifetime and the lifetimes of your children, you might want to learn this thing called accepting the truth as it is. I didn't say take it at face value. I'm saying after you get down to what the real nitty-gritty is, accept the truth for what it is. Now, I'm probably, for the sake of brevity, am going to put one last video clip. I may make this a part 2. If I make this a part 2, I probably will make this part 2 next week. If you guys want to see a part 2, you need to let me know in the comment section below. You can hit me in my inbox. If all you cocksucking haters out there, people that just want to thumbs my shit down just because you don't like me, you don't like my opinion, don't waste your time. Even though you're going to do it anyway, I'm just going to tell you, you're not going to be responded to. You're going to get ignored. You're going to get blocked. And depending on what you say, you may find yourself in more trouble than what it's worth. So, for that last tidbit, we're going to roll that clip. And I'm going to roll that clip that really got under you Negroes' skin. Roll it.
The Trayvon Martin murder case got just about everybody talking about race, and not just specifically how it related to the case. It got some, many on the political right, wondering why the so-called liberal media wasn't talking about other problems in the black community.
Let's talk about race. Let's talk about black-on-black violence.
The outrage that I have is in the lack of really the national attention to what is an epidemic of crime in the black community, committed largely by blacks.
Why aren't we talking about it? Good question. Actually, that's not a good question. We've talked about it many times on this show and on CNN. It's actually a good deflection, as I've said a number of times to a number of guests here on CNN and also on the radio.
David, do not do that false equivalent. That is
I'm not trying to equivocate, but outrage.
Yeah, but listen, crime
that.
happens all the time, and because a crime happens, it does not mean that you should shift the focus from what happened here. Let's stick to this particular point.
Okay,
so
on this issue then.
Thank you.
So that's the reason I didn't want to discuss at length crime in the African-American community or how to fix other ills that seem to be plaguing the community in general. But now that the jury has reached its verdict, one that everyone must accept, it's time now for some tough love on the subject. Someone on another network got the chance to go first because I couldn't go during the week. I'm only here on the weekend, so listen to this.
The reason there is so much violence and chaos in the black precincts is the disintegration of the African-American family.
He's got a point. In fact, he's got more than a point. Bill?
Raised without much structure, young black men often reject education and gravitate towards the street culture, drugs, hustling, gangs. Nobody forces them to do that. Again, it is a personal decision.
He is right about that too. But in my estimation, he doesn't go far enough. Because black people, if you really want to fix the problem, here's just 5 things that you should think about doing. Here's number 5. And if this doesn't apply to you, if you're not doing this, then it doesn't apply to you. I'm not talking about you. Here's number 5. Pull up your pants. Some people, a lot of them black, gave me flack for saying that recently on the Wendy Williams show.
If you're sagging, it means I think it's your self-esteem is sagging and who you are as a person. It's sagging. Young people need to be taught respect, and there are rules.
Sagging pants, whether it's Justin Bieber or no-name Derek around the way, walking around with your ass and your underwear showing is not okay. In fact, it comes from prison when they take away belts from the prisoner so that they can't make a weapon. And then it evolved into which role a prisoner would have during male-on-male prison sex. The one with the really low pants is a submissive one. You get my point? Number 4 now is the N-word.
For our generation, what we did was we took the word and we took the power out of that word.
We took this word and we made it into poetry.
I understand poetic license, but consider this. I hosted a special on the N-word, suggesting that black people stop using it, and that entertainers stop deluding yourselves or themselves and others that you're somehow taking the word back. By promoting the use of that word when it's not germane to the conversation, have you ever considered that you may just be perpetuating the stereotype the masser intended, acting like a nigger? A lot of African Americans took offense to that too, and I wondered if I gave the right advice. I really did. But confirmation came the very next day on my way home when I exited the subway on 125th Street in Harlem. This little kid in a school uniform, no older than 7 years old, he was crying his eyes out as he walked down the sidewalk with his mother. I'm going to be honest here. She turned to him and she said, "I'm sick of you. You act like an old-ass man. Stop all that crying, nigger." Is that taking the word back? Think about that. Now, number 3, respect where you live. Start small by not dropping trash, littering in your own communities. I've lived in several predominantly white neighborhoods in my life. I rarely, if ever, witness people littering. I live in Harlem now. It's an historically black neighborhood. Every single day I see adults and children dropping their trash on the ground when a garbage can is just feet away. Just being honest here. Number 2, finish school. You want to break the cycle of poverty? Stop telling kids they're acting white because they go to school or they speak proper English. A high school dropout makes on average $19,000 a year. A high school graduate makes $28,000 a year. A college graduate makes $51,000 a year. Over the course of a career, a college grad will make nearly $1 million more than a high school graduate. That's a lot of money. And number 1, and probably the most important, just because you can have a baby, it doesn't mean you should, especially without planning for one or getting married first. More than 72% of children in the African American community are born out of wedlock. That means absent fathers. And the studies show that lack of a male role model is an express train right to prison. And the cycle continues. So please, black folks, as I said, if this doesn't apply to you, I'm not talking to you. Pay attention to and think about what has been presented in recent history as acceptable behavior. Pay close attention to the hip-hop and rap culture that many of you embrace, a culture that glorifies everything I just mentioned, thug and reprehensible behavior, a culture that is making a lot of people rich, just not you, and it's not going to. That said, though, the political right is not off the hook.
If conservatives are so concerned about black-on-black crime, it's a little concerning. The only time I hear them talking about it is when they want to stick it to the black community.
And that's today.
So, can anybody tell me, based on what you have seen here today, can anyone tell me, just asking, how much of that stuff you saw on this petition was true? Somebody. Because in actuality, if you think about it, Don Lemon honestly has taken up and been quite neutral in most of the issues. And in fact, when it considered the issues of Trayvon Martin and so on and so forth, you saw it from the very evidence he presented in defense of himself. He has called out the right and said, wait a minute, don't do that. That's a false equivalency. Stop deflecting. Deal with the issue. Something that most of you Negroes can't do. Then again, you're trying to get a man fired because he's doing what? Being objective. This is a gay black man being objective. Well, here's the part where you get excoriated. You see, you disingenuous bastards ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Without any regret, I say these things to you simply because you guys sink to ever deepening lows to try and make your point, and you look like a bunch of whiny children having a titty fit in the middle of fucking Toys R Us because mommy won't buy you the toy that you want. It's amazing that in 2015, as blacks, we have not even learned objectivity. It's like if we go back into the day of my late grandmother, it was Jim Crow, but black folks had some standard and class about themselves. And no sooner than civil rights happens, and then the affirmative action of the 70s with the Vietnam War, feminism and rad femmes, the Reagan era, the COINTELPRO and the drugs that everyone loves to point at. And then, of course, gangland of the 90s, the HIV epidemic, the gang epidemic, the now growing LGBTQ community, and how many people are on the down low in that, to the new millennia. And in 50 years of civil rights, this is what you Negroes do. Instead of attacking the man's argument, you attack his presentation of that argument. Gee, that fucking seems familiar, doesn't it? You attack his argument. You attack him, maybe. Excuse me. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm attacking your argument. Instead of attacking his argument, you're attacking the way he presents his argument, which goes to show that you Negroes think with your feelings and not with your brains, if you had any to begin with. Because clearly, just with these 3 clips on its own, prima facie, I really don't have to do anything else. Because Don Lemon does a very good job of defending himself. But of course, as a vlogger myself, I want to defend this guy because you Negroes are sad. So in these 3 video clips, let's recap what happened. In the very last clip I showed you, he said in his own words, stop deflecting the issue, let's deal with the issue. But then he called you Negroes out. Because the fact of the matter is, if you walk through any black neighborhood, it is pretty fucking dirty. And if you go in any major black congregational areas such as a school, you're going to find these little nigglets acting like thugs. You're going to go out into the hood and see these niggas standing around like thugs in front of the building. You will walk through the community and see most of the girls dress or act like whores. You're going to see this. If you go into the majority of those houses, either mama's boyfriend lived there or mama by herself. There's no man in sight. There is no father, no structure, no order. This is a fact. I live in New York City. I can point you to Brownsville, Ocean Hill. I can point you to East New York. I can point you to parts of Harlem, parts of Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights. You name it where black folks live at, I can probably show you. More often than not, I am correct in my assumption. Mainly because I've traveled through those areas. Mainly because I know the type of people that live there. And the video, the second to last video I showed you, Don Lemon basically didn't say anything of the video of he was defending the officer, but he said, before I can make a judgment call, I want to see all the information, which is a rational thing to do. And of course, Sunny Hostin and her irrational ways, which is weird for a federal prosecutioner, to make such a, or I'm at a loss for words of how I want to describe it, because I'm pretty sure acrimonious doesn't fit here. But the point of the matter is this. You Negroes, it shows. The evidence is damning. Emotion, not logic. I want people who are going to read this petition, go and read the comments. Unfortunately, because I have not gone up to Camtasia yet and gotten a decent screen recorder at this moment, I cannot go to the actual page and show you myself. So you can read the comments and the justification of why these people want this man to lose his job. So go read it for yourself. Don't take my word for it, since I can't show you directly on the video. I'm going to do my very best by encouraging you to look. Now, if you sign that petition, that's of your own accord. I'm not pushing for it for that reason. It's merely for an educational tool. Nevertheless, back to my point. This is a thing, and it's part of this culture of political correctness. And unfortunately, black folks have basically gotten the worst of it when it comes to political correctness, because you can't say anything that offends them and it doesn't have some blowback. And what they're trying to propose is that we've been giving Don Lemon a pass for the longest now, but now even he's becoming too outrageous. We ain't gonna deal with this bullshit no more. I swear, we're not gonna deal with it. Let me stop you Negroes right there. Don Lemon has done nothing but tell the truth when it concerns you. Now, there are some issues I take with some things that Don Lemon has said, but that's again another topic for another video. But when it comes down to dealing with the exact issues on the table, the Black Lives Matter movement, black folks and maintaining the standard of living, there is a general pattern that whenever someone tries to tell you something for your own empowerment, your own betterment, you Negroes get butthurt, you get all sissified, you men start acting all milquetoast, y'all get steamed up, buttery, mashed potatoed. You dudes become softer than baby shit. You females get all bristly like you're a fucking alley cat in a back alleyway fight. Y'all get all start throwing sparks and screaming and spitting and hissing. If the truth were like holy water, I could say I probably could say this.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Look, let me just wrap this up plain and simple, because it's been about an hour. This is usually, it's not as long as I make these videos. Here's the thing. Your whole argument is a farce. You're arguing against this guy because he's not saying what the fuck you want him to say. And like every other thing that's gone on in the last 2 years, you Negroes react emotionally. When Don Sterling and his pillow talk came out, what did you Negroes do? Y'all got butthurt. Y'all got upset. Y'all got mad because this is what he thought. Now, my only issue with that was, if this is what he thought, did he bring it into the workplace? If yes, it's a problem. If no, fuck it. He has a right to think what he wants. If people don't feel that comfortable, don't play for him. But you Negroes got upset about that. Whenever we bring up this topic of there is an issue and thinking objectively, you Negroes refuse to do it. Even when the truth lays directly in your face. If I walked outside and told you a hurricane is going to make landfall in 45 minutes and then it starts to rain, you Negroes will be the type to tell me it's not raining. Somebody's standing way up in the clouds and they're pissing on all of us. Yeah, that's you. When are you people ever going to fucking get it through your heads? The only way you're going to improve your plight in America is if you recognize that your plight is 85% your own fucking doing. People have said this to you time and after time after time after time. Don Lemon is not the only person who has ever said this to you. Dr. William Cosby has said things like this to you. Dr. Benjamin Carson has said this to you. There have been many blacks on different walks of life who have espoused or actually have the exact same viewpoints that the three gentlemen I just named had. And they've told you exactly what you need to do to get your black ass out of the position you're in and onto a better life. But the funny thing is, you Negroes don't listen. You think you can get a much simpler explanation. Like the jackass in the first clip, where the first thing you reach for is an assertion and a fucking buzzword that makes you look like a jackass. Not the dude you're trying to discredit. Not the white man you blame for your problems. You, Negro, makes you look like hammered horse shit. Do you know why? Because it comes off that you're unintelligent. It comes off that you don't think outside the box. You don't analyze things. You don't take what the evidence gives you and use it to go and build towards something. That's not what you do. That idiot in the first clip said it's racism and white supremacy is why blacks are doing horrible. That's why the cops are doing to black folks. Never mind the fact that it is not racism and white supremacy that gets you to go into Rondisha's house and fuck that girl with no condom and end up with a baby. It's not racism and white supremacy why your black ass can't keep the buildings in the neighborhoods that were historically yours. It's not racism and white supremacy that's going out there and getting your sons shot for stupid fucking decisions he made. It ain't racism and white supremacy as to why you can't get a job. You want me to give you the short answer, Negro? It's your own fault. This is America, the land of opportunity. If the Mexicans can come over, if the Hindus can come over, the Africans, the Arabs, if all nations converge in this one place and they can find success in doing what they do, and you who are born in this land cannot, is it because the system favors them or because you're not using your American given rights to make the system work for you? It's funny how we talked in the very first clip of this video. Don Lemon brought up an excellent point. How can you affect change if you're not going to get involved in the political system? I see all you black folks talking about we shouldn't vote. Why be a part of a system? My vote doesn't matter. Your vote stopped mattering. Your votes ceased to matter when you stop exercising the power to vote. See, it used to be at one point in this country, you had to get the black vote. In fact, your one Barack Hussein Obama has shown you Negroes how much your votes mattered. Because other than the women and the gay crowd, there is a reason why certain states that look to have gone red went blue. I'm going to tell you why. Because you Negroes in those precincts that he needed to win, he won. Let me explain. I am a native of Virginia. There are 7 cities in Virginia that are pretty much where you'll find Negroes. Hampton, Richmond, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Newport News. I'm leaving 2 out for the sake of brevity. Guess how much of that vote did Obama get in both elections that flipped Virginia from red to blue? Give me a ballpark figure. So obviously, Negro, your vote must count. The problem is you don't do your fucking research. You don't look at these candidates. You don't look at what they're actually promising you and what record they have to stand on. So it stands to reason, if you would let anyone lead you astray for the highest office in the land, anyone could tell you anything and fuck you up. Then again, you've been indoctrinated that way since birth because you had no father in the house. And I'm willing to bet your mother wasn't all right in the head either. I'm willing to bet that. So now, when you are confronted with the very essence of truth, you Negroes run. You run like scared little bitches. Well, it is what it is. I sincerely hope that Don Lemon does not lose his job. Just because some soft, sissified, punk-ass niggas got butthurt. Fuck y'all. If y'all felt so strongly about it, what you should do, what you niggas could do, was get a snapshot of videos showing your communities, saying, it's not like this, Don, you lied. But you won't do that. You would come up with the statistical data that says, hey, we don't have 72% of our babies out of wedlock. But you won't. Because if you did, you would. And you would say, hey, Don, you lied. And let's not talk about the things Don didn't mention. Like half of the black women are accounting for all the new HIV and herpes cases. He didn't mention that. But if it weren't true, you would. If it weren't true, you'd come out with the data that says, hey, Azriel, you lied. You would take snapshots of your community and see how pristine and clean it is and go and say, hey, Don, you lied. But you won't. Cut the shit, people. Seriously. It's fucking pathetic. I sincerely wish, for all intents and all purposes, that if you really cared about your community, if you really cared about the representation of black folks in America, then what you lazy ass motherfuckers ought to do is do some self-reflecting. That's what you should do. Because frankly, from where you stand, you niggas ain't got a leg to stand on. Seriously, you don't. It's a pity almost. We, as a people, 50 years ago, segregated, beaten down, had dogs turned on us, lynched in the middle of the night. But a proud, hard-working people have to split into 2 factions. The buffoons, the buck-dancing, bojangling shines, and the people who kept the traditions of his father and his forefather alive. Having some real pride. Being able to think critically. What I really want is for all you Negroes who sign that, what I really want you to do is to get your black asses up, go move on an island somewhere and build your own civilization. And come back in 10 generations and tell me how they worked out for you. My money is on before the first generation's out, you niggas will eat each other. I don't know what to say, but I know one thing. If you come to this channel looking for change and solutions, just remember that change starts with one. Fuck off.